Hi there. Welcome to The Imperfect Prophet, a podcast for women who wonder, with me, your host, Wonder Wendy. Today I'm coming to you from my sewing room, which for those of you on YouTube, you have the visual of seeing all sorts of things. Piles of fabric, piles of dishes, which are not a traditional thing in a sewing room, and books. You don't see the patterns. You don't see all the notions in the drawers. This place is stockpiled for me to be stuck in a blizzard and spend a month or a year doing nothing but creating, which I live in Arizona now, so that's never going to happen. But speaking of being a hermit and being alone, there is a place for that in life. But if you're going to be a bucket lister, there's no way you're going to do it alone. Never. And that's hard for a lot of adults. As we get older, it's not as easy to meet people. It's not as easy to start conversations. There's all those little self-doubts about, is this weird? How do we do it? I don't know. And I actually had that conversation with a friend earlier today. She said, now that I'm over 50, I don't know how to make friends. And I realized that when we are kids, we're put in social situations where we need to make friends. And it's not always easy. We know there's that kid who has no friends in the back of the classroom. And unfortunately, many of us aren't strong enough to reach back to that kid because we don't want to be branded as unpopular like they are. I was one of those kids. I wasn't what I'd call popular. I was weird. I know you find it hard to believe as I sit in the middle of a sewing room filled with creative supplies. But I wasn't mainstream. I didn't wear what the popular kids were wearing. I didn't have the right labels on my clothes. I did have friends though, and I didn't want to jeopardize that by being associated with, I hate to use the word, but it is what we called them, losers. And when I got called a loser, it stung. It stung like nobody's business. But that aside, going back to making friends. As an adult, you're not put in those social situations. As a matter of fact, you're put in situations where you can plow through your life, straight on with your life, and you don't have to or need to make friends. You talk to the people you work with as much as necessary. You might talk to the grocery store cashier, but guess what? You don't even have to go in the grocery store anymore. You can order your groceries online and have them delivered to your door. And by the time you answer the door, the person who's delivered them has already run away. You don't even get to talk to them. And I frequently now pick up my groceries at the grocery store. I put in an order online and I go to pick them up. Somebody wheels them out. They nicely load them in my car. Now, I do go out of my way to talk to that person. To not talk to them seems a little creepy to me, but you don't have to. Matter of fact, you don't even have to really do more than roll down your window and pop your hatch. They'll load the groceries in, ask your name, you move on. You're good. You don't have to interact with people anymore. Our world has made it possible to not really interact anymore. We're too efficient. I'm going to suggest that you become less efficient. I want you to take time to get out of your car and talk to people and find opportunities to do that because you will expand your circles. And once in a while, you're going to meet somebody that you go, hey, I really like you. I don't think I've told you about this. During COVID, the very epicenter of isolation and boredom, when my husband and I ran out of things to talk about, I would go for very long walks, really long walks. I'd be gone for hours. Occasionally I had to call him and say, please come get me because nothing's open and I have to go to the bathroom and I'm not exactly sure where I am. And I'd read him the intersection points and he'd come find me and drive me home so I could go to the bathroom. That was during the height of COVID shutdown. But also during COVID shutdown, there were a couple lovely conversations with other people who'd left their homes in their sneakers and were just wandering aimlessly. And at one point I was walking down the street, and because at that point, we thought we were supposed to be 6 feet away from every other living human being because germs are really smart that way. I approached a woman on the sidewalk. We were looking at each other, and we both attempted to step off the sidewalk to make room so that we would be 6 feet apart. But we both stepped off the sidewalk together, so we were still blocking each other's way. So then we both stepped onto the sidewalk. You can picture how silly it got. It looked like a bad Chip and Dale episode. Chip and Dale from Disney. If anyone doesn't get that reference, go watch it. Anyway, so after a few minutes, we started laughing. I don't think it even took minutes, but after a few times of us blocking each other's paths, we started talking. And I liked this lady. She looked to be about my age, and she seemed interesting, and she had a nice smile. And I looked at her, I said, I wasn't walking anywhere in particular. Would it be okay if I walked with you? Obviously, we'd run into each other, so we were both heading in different directions, but she said that would be great. And so we started walking together. And at first, one of us walked in the clutter and the other one walked on the sidewalk. We tried our best to stay 6 feet apart. But after a couple of hours of walking and talking, we got closer together. We never actually touched or anything like that. Nothing creepy. Creepy is so scary, right? Don't be creepy. It didn't get weird. As a matter of fact, it turned out she was going through a really rough time. Her mom was in assisted living. declining rapidly, and she didn't have anyone to help her deal with it. She was basically with just her husband and teenage son in her house. And her husband's a lovely man. I have met him. Some men, some husbands, let's just say they're not your best talk to buddies. They won't help you talk until you feel better. Not really a guy's jam. I've met a few guys like that, but in general, that's not what we have men for. So she and I started talking, and I'd been through this a few years prior. I went through the same thing. My mom was in assisted living. She was declining. It was sad. It was hard. She eventually went into hospice and she passed away. It was like, that's never easy, losing your mom. So I was able to guide her through some of the emotions, let her talk through some of the emotions, maybe provide some creative solutions for dealing with the emotions. But mostly I just listened and we became friends. And by the end of our walk, we traded phone numbers. And within a few weeks, we were walking several days a week together. It was her therapy. It was cathartic for me. It was so lovely to talk to another human being. We aren't as close as we were during those days. Our lives have gotten busy again, and we've gone our own paths now that the world has opened up again. But we still try to get together for lunch or breakfast or something a couple times a year. And it's really nice to hear. So making friends is hard, but it's not as hard as you're making it seem. You need to get out of your own way. Stop being so efficient. Stop sending a text when an actual conversation might be better. Texts are lovely. They have a high purpose. Trust me. Got my phone right next to me. I'm ready to text. But if you're not connecting with people, you're slowly getting used to being alone. And believe it or not, socializing is like muscle mass. Have you ever been sick and not walked for a week or more? Sometimes even a couple days. If you've had a high fever or haven't eaten much, first few times you stand up, you need somebody just to help you get to the bathroom. You're so weak. You're so tired. Socializing and interacting with other human beings, it's the same sort. If you're not doing it, it gets more and more awkward. So you need to practice. Now, let's say you haven't been socializing and I take you to a rock concert with a VIP party beforehand and an after party afterwards. Even if it's your favorite artist, you are going to crash. You're not used to this. Do not start out at that point. Think of it this way. If I took you to a yoga class and you've never taken a yoga class before, and I've been practicing for a while, don't expect you're going to do as well as I do because I've been practicing for a while. You need to slowly build up to it. Maybe first you go in the room and you do every third exercise, and once in a while you have to sit down and catch your breath. That's okay. Yet yoga can be that hard. Trust me. Or if you go to the gym with somebody who's been working out, you have a friend who runs 5 miles a day. Don't go on a 5-mile run with them unless you've been running. You will die. Find a friend who will take you on a walk, or find a friend who will go on the treadmill next to you and respects the fact that your treadmill is set at 2 miles an hour where theirs is set at 7. Whatever. The same thing goes for socializing. Don't dive into the deep end. Start slow. Pick your times. Make a phone call. Wow, I'm of an age. I still use my hands like pinky extended, thumb extended, so it looks like I'm actually holding a phone. But make a phone call. Talk to somebody. Practice talking to somebody. One of my favorite exercises for practicing talking to somebody is to engage the person in line in front of you at the grocery store or the department store, any place you're in a line. You have the potential for starting a conversation. This may or may not be your best friend for life. Actually, probably won't be your best friend for life. But by starting that conversation, you open the door creating new connections. And I'll probably mention this again because it is one of my favorite tools. And it's really easy to practice, especially at the grocery store. You look in their cart and you identify something that you have wanted to try, have never tried, something you've never heard of. Wow, I've never had that brand of soup before. Do you like it? You know what? Usually they'll tell you why they're buying it. Either they liked it, they want to try it, they heard something from a friend. It really doesn't matter what they say. You're engaging in conversation, and be open to that conversation. If they're eating something you've never eaten before, oh, how do you prepare that? I've never had that before. You can start a conversation, and what it does is it exercises that muscle. And as you talk, try and do this little exercise where the corners of your lips go up. It's called a smile because we all know, even if you're faking a smile, your brain interprets the muscles being raised as happiness. And it sends little endorphins to your brain that make you happier. And do you know what? Happier people are more attractive. And I don't mean that in Vogue's going to call you because you're now smiling and so you look better. No, I mean that you literally attract more people to you. I've been working on that, not saying negative things, saying something positive to somebody. Interesting story. There's a woman in my yoga classes who, for months, I'd never heard her say a word. Not a single word. She was very solitary in the locker room, kept to herself, couldn't quite figure out what was going on with her. At the beginning of the summer, she got a radical haircut, like buzz shaved, really shaved, all except for this little front part. And at first, I was a little shocked because I don't know that I'd ever have the nerve to do that. And certainly, I have to admit, my husband would probably divorce me if I did that. He'd be like, you may leave for a year, and when you have hair, you may come back. I know that sounds really cruel, but that's what he'd do. I got my hair cut short one time, and he barely talked to me for 3 months. Please don't send letters about that. It's a choice, I know. And now I really do like my long hair. So now my long hair is also for me, and I don't want to cut it off. It's not just I digress. Anyway, this woman in my yoga class got this radically bald head with just a little bit of hair right here at the front of her face. And I got over my shock in the locker room and I said, wow, that is a big change. I bet you feel a lot cooler, don't you? And I said it with what? A smile. And she said, oh, it really scared me at first. But I'm working construction this summer and I do hot yoga. And frankly, fussing with all that hair was just too hard. And I know it'll grow back. And I kept little bits in the front so that when I'm wearing a hat or I have my head wrapped in a scarf, nobody really knows I'm bald anyway. So my life's easier and you're right, it is cooler. Suddenly, other people in the locker room were joining in the conversation, and she was talking to just about everybody. This woman who was so quiet as to make me think she might be mildly autistic, and if she's hearing this, not said in a bad way, just I really thought that was her choice. I do know people who are very uncomfortable talking to other people, and here she was opening up and talking to everybody and being lovely. And she's continued to talk to me ever since. So that one little comment with a smile and absolutely no judgment. I got over the judgment before I said something. We're not friends per se, but she's somebody who talks to me in the locker room. And the more I've engaged people in the locker room, the more I've discovered that there's some lovely people in there. Now, we're not having coffee together. We're not going to breakfast together, but I practice in there every day. And last week I wasn't feeling really good. Something was bothering my tummy or my sinuses or something, whatever. And yoga is particularly rough. And I ended up sitting on the floor of the locker room until I didn't feel dizzy anymore after class. And the number of people who came by and said, hey, are you okay? And I said, no, I probably just drank too much last night, which might have been the actual truth, she says, taking another sip of her wine. This is my one glass of wine for the night. That night before that, I'd had more. Anyway, they were wonderful and supportive. And I felt loved and I felt surrounded and I felt connected to people because I didn't hide away and because I was honest and I was transparent. Now, before you say, yeah, you can do that, but I can't do that. Remember, 5 years ago, I couldn't do hot yoga. 5 years ago, I sat through most of the class. 5 years ago, there were commands I didn't understand because my body wouldn't do it. It's taken me 5 years of concerted practice to be bad at yoga. My body's much healthier, but I'm still working on getting it realigned properly. Same goes for socializing. Don't ask too much of yourself. Don't try and do it overnight. Just get out there and talk to people. And if you wanted to go out and be in a room full of people, go to a library, a little less stressful than a bar or a restaurant. Go to a museum and talk to somebody about what you're looking at. Don't you love the blue in that painting? Be surprised. They will comment. Now they might say, I actually don't like the blue. I'm finding it a little too blue. I like the brown of the earth. Okay, great. Have a conversation about that. Do you really want to talk to everybody who agrees with you? I think that's one of the problems with our society. All we want to do is talk to people who agree with us these days. You know what? I love a good discussion that we disagree on. I like a good debate too. As long as they're not mean. Don't be mean. Why be mean? The world's too short. No, the world's too small. Life's too short. That's what it is. The world's too small and life's too short to be mean and negative. If you're listening to this and thinking, I really wish I had friends. I really wish I had someone to talk to. A, you do have someone to talk to. Me. Join my Facebook group. We can have a conversation. Pull up a beverage. We're talking. Even though you're just listening right now, we're talking. It's all kind of rhetorical. You're hearing things in your head you would say if you were actually in a room with me, aren't you? And what you would be saying is clean your sewing room. But this is my sewing room clean. You should have seen it before I cleaned it. That said, as she takes another drink of wine, you can develop these skills. And you may never be me. And why would you want to be me? My life hasn't always been easy. There have been challenges. There are still challenges. And there are still things I'm learning. Be your best you. And I want to meet your best you. And the world wants to meet your best you. And I'm finding the more transparent I become, as I have these lovely conversations with you and I talk about what's going on and I explore my world, I am finding more and more people are coming up and talking to me. My world is opening up like a flower. It's finally gotten the right mix of nitrogen and peat moss and soil and air and sunlight and water. That's me. I'm blooming. I am living a life full of wonder. A wonderful life. And that is available to you too. But it's not just going to come to you. Because the other day a friend said, if you work towards it, you can have your dreams. And I said, no, unless you're doing the work, it is just a dream. If you're doing the work, it's a goal. So stop dreaming, start living, work on developing that muscle of communicating with other people and smiling and making friends. And if you can't smile, look at somebody and say, I don't know how to smile. It's really sad because what you're saying is so entertaining. I'd like to smile. I'd like to hear you say that without smiling. It was hard for me to do it. So live your life full of wonder, and I will look forward to talking to you next week about something else, or maybe more of the same, because this is a big topic of the technology taking over our lives and us not connecting on a human level and us not disagreeing in a civil manner. If we work together at being our best selves, communicating, smiling, and being good people. I know it sounds silly, doesn't it? Good people, but we can be better people. We can make our world a better place. Will you please join me? Be a bucket lister. I look forward to talking to you soon. Have a lovely day.